Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to have you here with us today for another deep dive.
Yeah, really glad you could join us. We've got some fascinating stuff to talk about today.
We really do. So to kick things off, I want you to picture a scenario. I think every single one of us has experienced this at some point,
Oh, definitely.
especially if you're navigating, those early career networking mixers or a massive university lecture hall, or honestly, even just a crowded local coffee shop.
Just anywhere with a lot of people, really.
Right. So you're standing there, maybe you're holding a slightly warm plastic cup of water, and you're feeling, well, a bit out of place.
We've all been there.
And then the door opens. Someone walks in, and before they even scan the room, before they introduce themselves or shake a single hand, you look at them and instantly think, wow, that person is in charge.
Yeah, they just have that undeniable aura.
Exactly. This insane aura. It's like this invisible radiating energy of pure confidence. You just intuitively know that this person has everything completely under control and they belong exactly where they are.
It is a very specific and honestly almost intimidating phenomenon, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely terrifying.
Because you look at an individual like that, and your brain immediately assigns them this high level of respect and authority. But what the data shows, which is super interesting, is that for a lot of people, witnessing someone with that kind of magnetic aura,
It makes you feel worse about yourself.
right, it triggers an instant wave of self-doubt. You see their composure, and suddenly you are hyper-aware of your own awkwardness.
You feel like you don't know what to do with your hands.
Exactly. A lot of us often experience the exact opposite of that confident energy. Instead of feeling like this commanding presence, we experience what psychologists sometimes call the nervous little bird syndrome.
The nervous little bird. I love that. And I hate how accurate it is.
It's essentially a localized spike in imposter syndrome. Your sympathetic nervous system just kicks into overdrive.
And this happens so often when you're stepping out of your comfort zone, right?
Oh, yeah, like pitching a new idea at work.
Or walking into an interview. Or even trying to speak a brand new language in public for the first time.
That's a huge one. You desperately want to project bravery, but internally your heart rate is spiking, your palms are sweating, your biological instinct is literally telling you to shrink down and hide.
I have absolutely been there. That feeling of wanting to just fold into yourself and disappear into the wallpaper is so
The
real.
worst.
And when you're the one sweating through your shirt, looking at the person who seems completely unfazed, it feels completely unfair.
It really does.
And that brings us to the core mission of our deep dive today. We are looking at a stack of research and behavioral studies that ask a fundamental question. Why exactly do some people look so effortlessly confident?
Are they just genetic lottery winners?
Right, like were they born with a magical confidence gene?
Mm.
Or is this an acquired skill? Is it something that you, standing there in that crowded room, can actively learn, decode, and practice?
And that is the most encouraging part about the research we are analyzing today. The literature actually provides a very grounded, practical roadmap that strips away all the mystique.
So it's not magic.
It's not magic at all. It turns out that unshakable aura of confidence is not a mystical energy field. And it certainly isn't a personality trait you have to be born with.
That is such a relief to hear.
Right. From a behavioral science perspective, what we perceive as an aura is actually just a collection of very specific, highly learnable physical and vocal actions.
Okay, so it's actions, not traits.
Exactly. Our brains are essentially supercomputers processing thousands of microsignals every second. When someone looks confident, they're just intentionally broadcasting the right microsignals.
I see.
The research breaks down these signals into manageable, actionable steps that anyone can adopt.
Okay, let's unpack this. The research divides these actionable steps into a few distinct categories, right?
Yes, it does.
The first major component we need to look at is all about the visual cues. This is the raw data people process the moment they lay eyes on you, before you even open your mouth.
We're talking about the mechanics of body language.
Exactly. And the very first takeaway here is the undeniable power of posture. The consensus across the studies is that confident people exhibit good posture.
Right.
But I want to dig deeper into that because stand up straight sounds like something a middle school teacher yells at you.
Yeah, it's a bit of a cliche.
What are the actual biomechanics of confident posture, and why does our brain respond to it so strongly?
Well, you're right to want to move beyond the basic stand-up straight advice because the psychology behind it is deeply rooted in our evolutionary biology.
Oh, really? How so?
When the research talks about good posture, it's referring to a very specific structural alignment. Your spinal column is elongated, your shoulders are pulled back and down,
Hmm.
and your chin is parallel to the floor.
So really opening up the chest.
Exactly. And to understand why this broadcasts confidence, you have to contrast it with the biological mechanics of fear.
The nervous little bird again.
Exactly. Think back to that nervous little bird feeling.
Right.
When a human being feels threatened, unsure, or insecure.
Like when you're terrified of messing up your English grammar in a big meeting.
Yes. Your body instinctively enters a defensive posture. Your shoulders round forward to protect your heart and lungs. You tuck your chin to protect your neck. You cross your arms.
You're making yourself a smaller target.
Precisely. You are physically minimizing your surface area to avoid detection and protect your vital organs.
Wow. So when I'm slouching over my laptop or hunching my shoulders at a networking event, I am subconsciously telling everyone in the room that I feel like prey.
Pretty much.
I am literally putting up a defensive turtle shell.
That's exactly what it is. You are broadcasting vulnerability and a desire to be ignored. Confident people, on the other hand, do the precise opposite.
They open up.
They expose their chest, they keep their neck visible, and they do not cross their limbs. By adopting this open posture, they are sending a profound subconscious signal to everyone's primal brain.
Which is what?
It signals, I am completely unthreatened by this environment. And the core concept the behavioral research emphasizes here is the idea of taking up space.
Taking up space. I hear that phrase thrown around a lot in modern career advice, especially for young professionals trying to establish themselves.
It's a very popular concept right now.
But I have to play devil's advocate for a second. Doesn't taking up space sometimes border on being obnoxious?
That's a really fair question.
You know the type. The person who walks into a room, spreads their arms across 3 chairs, and physically dominates the area. How do we balance taking up space with not just looking arrogant?
That is a crucial distinction to make. There is a very thick line between confident expansion and aggressive territoriality.
Okay, where is that line?
The research clarifies that confident posture is about claiming your inherent space, not invading the space of others. Oh, I like that. Your inherent space.
Right. Arrogance or aggression is when you encroach on someone else's physical boundaries, like man-spreading on a crowded train or leaning aggressively over someone's desk.
Yeah, nobody likes that.
True confidence is simply refusing to apologize for your own physical existence. When you stand tall with your shoulders back, you are optimizing your own physical footprint.
You're just being the full size that you actually are.
Exactly. You are signaling, I belong in this room, and I have a fundamental right to be here, without needing to diminish anyone else in the process.
That makes total sense. It's about ownership of yourself, not domination of the room.
Well said.
When you shrink, you're giving away your power and inviting people to talk over you. When you stand tall in your own space, you command attention.
You really do.
And speaking of commanding attention, that leads us right into the next critical element of the visual category, the eyes.
Yes, eye contact. The studies highlight eye contact as a primary metric for confidence. They note that confident people don't look away quickly or dart their eyes around the room. Holding someone's gaze proves you aren't intimidated.
Eye contact is one of the most complex nonverbal cues we navigate as humans. It establishes an immediate visceral connection.
It really does. You feel it instantly.
You do. And when you look down at the floor or constantly break eye contact while speaking, you disrupt that connection. The listener's brain interprets that evasion in a few ways.
Like what?
Either you are hiding information, you lack conviction in your own words, or you view the listener as a threat.
None of which are good if you're trying to look confident.
Exactly. Conversely, sustained eye contact signals transparency and cognitive presence. It shows that you are actively engaging with the person in front of you.
But there's a catch, right?
There is a massive caveat here because sustained eye contact can very quickly backfire.
Right, because if you just lock your eyes onto someone, refuse to blink, and stare them down without breaking gaze,
You stop looking confident very quickly.
you stop looking like a confident professional and start looking like a serial killer.
It's true. What's fascinating here is the neurology behind why a hard stare feels so deeply uncomfortable.
Because it's just inherently creepy.
In our evolutionary history, a sustained, unbroken stare across species is almost universally recognized as a predatory threat display.
Oh, wow. So you're literally acting like a predator tracking its prey.
Yes, when you lock eyes with someone without any softening features, you trigger their amygdala, that's the fear center of the brain. Their fight or flight response activates.
So if you're trying to network or build rapport, Triggering the other person's survival instinct is the worst possible strategy.
The absolute worst.
So how do we thread that needle? If looking away makes me look insecure, but staring makes me look like a predator, what is the actual formula for projecting confidence through the eyes without making people want to run away?
The behavioral literature provides a highly specific formula to neutralize the threat while maintaining the confidence. It's eye contact combined with what psychologists call a warm smile.
A warm smile.
Specifically, they refer to a Duchenne smile, which involves not just the mouth, but the muscles around the eyes.
Oh, like when your eyes crinkle at the corners.
Exactly. When you engage those eye muscles, it softens your entire face. It completely alters the context of the eye contact.
That makes a lot of sense. It shows you're friendly.
A warm smile paired with direct eye contact signals to the other person's brain. I'm looking directly at you because I am genuinely pleased to engage with you, not because I am targeting you.
It immediately shifts the energy of the interaction from confrontational to highly approachable and collaborative.
It really is amazing how much heavy lifting a simple muscle movement around the eyes can do. It completely rewrites the biological script from threat to friend.
Okay, so we have the open posture claiming our space, and we have the warm, engaged eye contact. But there is another physical domain that constantly betrays us when we are nervous.
I think I know where you're going with this.
I am talking about the hands. The research points to fidgeting as the ultimate leak of internal anxiety.
Fidgeting is essentially the physical manifestation of cognitive overload and nervous energy.
It's like your body just can't contain the stress.
Exactly. When you are in a high-stress situation, like realizing you just used the wrong vocabulary word in front of your boss, your body releases adrenaline and cortisol.
You just want to run away.
Your nervous system is prepping you to either fight or run away. But since you are in a professional environment and cannot do either of those things, that excess kinetic energy has to find an escape route. It leaks out through your extremities.
The classic nervous leaks, the pen clicking, the leg bouncing under the table, twisting a ring around your finger, or constantly adjusting your hair.
We all have our go-to nervous habit.
I have to admit, I am a chronic pen clicker. I don't even realize I am doing it until someone gives me a look.
And that lack of realization is exactly why it is so detrimental to your confident aura. Fidgeting represents a lack of executive control over your own body.
You're not doing it on purpose, it's just happening to you.
Right. These are self-soothing behaviors. Your brain is trying to burn off stress by creating repetitive physical sensations. But to an observer, it signals that you are uncomfortable, distracted, and overwhelmed by the situation.
So what do confident people do instead?
The research notes that highly confident individuals have a fundamentally different relationship with their hand and extremities. They either maintain complete stillness or they utilize calm, highly intentional gestures.
I feel like stillness is an incredibly underrated skill. In a chaotic environment, someone who can just stand or sit completely still immediately draws the eye.
Because stillness requires immense cognitive control.
Yeah.
When you can rest your hands quietly on the table in front of you, or let them hang relaxed at your sides without needing to constantly adjust your clothing or touch your face, you are projecting an immense amount of self-assurance.
It shows you're not panicked.
You are showing that you are entirely comfortable in your own skin and in your current environment. And when confident people do move their hands, it is never frantic.
It's purposeful.
They use gestures purposefully to illustrate a point, to guide the conversation, or to emphasize a concept. The movements are smooth, rhythmic, and tied directly to their speech, rather than being a random byproduct of anxiety.
So if we look at our visual checklist, we are building a pretty solid foundation. We're keeping our spine elongated and our shoulders back to take up our rightful space. We're maintaining eye contact while softening our face with a genuine smile. And we're keeping our hands intentionally still, rather than letting our nervous energy dictate our movements.
It's a great checklist.
It all sounds fantastic on paper, but here is the massive elephant in the room.
What's that?
What happens when you do all those physical things flawlessly, but internally your heart is still hammering against your ribs, your stomach is in knots, and you feel entirely terrified?
Ah, yes, the internal reality.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because we are transitioning into the second major pillar of the research, the mental game. And the data reveals something that completely reframes how we should think about confidence.
It is arguably the most liberating insight in the entire body of research.
It really is. The big secret, the reality behind the curtain, is that a significant portion of the people who look incredibly, unshakably confident on the outside are actually terrified on the inside.
It's so true.
That person who walked into the networking mixer looking like a seasoned CEO, their internal monologue might be just as panicked and insecure as yours.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it requires us to completely dismantle our assumptions about success and leadership.
How so?
We tend to operate under the illusion that confidence is the absence of fear. We assume that effective leaders or charismatic speakers simply don't experience anxiety.
We think they're just built different.
Right. But the psychological reality is that everyone experiences the physiological symptoms of fear. The difference is entirely in how they respond to it. This brings us to a concept that often gets summarized by the well-known phrase, fake it till you make it.
I have to be honest, I've always had a bit of a love-hate relationship with the phrase fake it till you make it.
A lot of people do. Why is that for you?
On one hand, I get the utility of it, but on the other hand, it can feel so incredibly inauthentic. If I'm terrified inside, but I'm forcing my shoulders back and pasting a smile on my face, aren't I just lying to everyone? Doesn't that make the imposter syndrome even worse?
That is a very valid critique, and it is a common stumbling block. But the research draws a sharp distinction here. Fake it till you make it does not mean faking competence.
Okay, so it doesn't mean lying about your resume.
Exactly. It doesn't mean lying about your skills, pretending you know how to code when you don't, or claiming to speak fluent French when you only know 3 words. That type of faking is deceptive and ultimately destructive.
So what kind of faking are we talking about?
What the research is advocating for is faking the physiology of confidence. And it advocates for this because of a profound psychological phenomenon called embodied cognition.
Embodied cognition. Okay, break that down for us. What does that mean in the context of feeling like a fraud at a cocktail party?
We traditionally view the mind-body connection as a one-way street. We assume our emotions dictate our physical posture. For instance, you feel happy, so you smile. You feel intimidated, so you slouch.
That seems pretty standard.
But embodied cognition reveals that the street actually runs both ways. Your physical posture can dictate your emotional state.
Wait, really? The body tells the mind how to feel.
Yes, if you physically force your facial muscles into a smile, your brain will eventually interpret that muscle activation and begin to release neurotransmitters associated with happiness.
That is wild.
If you force your body into a posture of defeat, like slumped shoulders, head down, your brain will assume you are defeated and increase your feelings of helplessness.
So your brain is constantly scanning your body to figure out what mood it should be in.
Precisely. Therefore, faking the physical posture of confidence is not about deceiving others. It is a scientifically validated method for hacking your own nervous system. You aren't lying to the room, you are leading your brain out of a state of panic.
That is a massive paradigm shift. You are essentially using your body as a steering wheel for your emotions.
That's a great way to put it.
And the research doesn't just theorize about this, it backs it up with hard biological data. They specifically delve into the science of power posing, which gained a lot of traction a few years ago.
Yes, the study of postural feedback, or power posing, provides measurable evidence of this mind-body feedback loop.
So what does a power pose actually look like?
The literature details specific expansive stances, the most famous being the Wonder Woman or Superman pose.
Oh, I've seen people do this.
To execute this, you stand with your feet planted firmly, slightly wider than shoulder width apart. You place your hands aggressively on your hips, you lift your chest, and you tilt your chin up slightly.
Basically making yourself look as big and sturdy as possible.
Exactly. You are maximizing your physical footprint and adopting a stance associated with dominance across mammalian species.
And what the study suggests is that if you hold this specific, expansive pose for just 2 minutes before walking into a high-stakes environment,
Whether that is a job interview, a performance review, or stepping onto a stage to give a presentation.
it doesn't just change your mindset. It physically alters the neuroendocrine profile of your brain.
The physiological mechanics are fascinating. By holding an open, high-power pose, you are sending a sustained, intense signal of safety and dominance to your endocrine system.
And how does body respond?
In response, your body begins to alter its hormone production. The research indicates a noticeable decrease in cortisol, which is your primary stress hormone. That's the chemical responsible for the fight-or-flight panic.
So it literally lowers your stress levels.
Yes. And simultaneously, there can be an increase in feelings of power and risk tolerance. In just 120 seconds of standing in a bathroom stall or an empty elevator with your hands on your hips, you are fundamentally changing the chemical cocktail in your bloodstream, giving yourself a biological buffer against anxiety.
It is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
You are essentially giving yourself a free, totally legal, performance-enhancing biochemical boost just by manipulating gravity and your own skeleton. It really is incredible.
It makes me think of confidence not as a personality trait, but as a literal muscle.
That is perhaps the most accurate analogy you could use.
Think about it like going to the gym. If you want to get stronger, you don't just sit on the couch hoping to wake up with muscles. You go to the gym and you attempt to lift a weight that is currently too heavy for you.
And it's hard at first.
It feels unnatural. It hurts. You might look a bit foolish, struggling with it, but you practice the motion. You push against the resistance. And even if you don't feel like a bodybuilder on day one, if you keep showing up and putting your body through the physical motions of lifting, the muscle fibers adapt, repair, and grow.
They absolutely do.
Confidence operates on the exact same principle of neuroplasticity. You have to practice using the confidence muscle, putting yourself in positions of social resistance, even when you feel incredibly weak. And every single time you consciously pull your shoulders back when you'd rather slouch, every time you hold that power pose in the mirror, every time you force yourself to maintain eye contact and smile at a stranger instead of looking at your phone,
You're doing a rep?
you are completing a repetition at the confidence gym. You are building neural pathways. Initially, it requires immense conscious effort. It feels like faking it, but over time, through repetition, those pathways solidify.
It just becomes natural.
The expansive posture becomes your default state, and the internal feeling of confidence naturally follows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The fake it till you make it phase is just the training wheels until the muscle is strong enough to hold you up.
Precisely.
Okay, so we have deeply explored the visual muscle, how to physically occupy space and control our movements, and we've decoded the mental muscle, how to hack our hormones through posture. Now we need to pivot to the third and arguably most nuanced component of the research.
The auditory clues.
Right. This isn't about the vocabulary you use. It is entirely about the mechanics of how confident people sound.
What's fascinating here is that we often obsess over scripting the perfect words. We spend hours writing out presentations or planning exactly what we're going to say in a meeting,
Guilty as charged.
but the research suggests that how you deliver those words carries significantly more weight in projecting authority. And the very first auditory metric the data focuses on is the power of pacing. Confident individuals possess a very distinct, regulated speaking cadence. They do not rush.
Rushing is such a universal trap, especially for anyone dealing with the nervous little bird phenomenon. I know that when I'm feeling insecure or if I'm trying to explain a complex idea and I feel like I'm losing the audience's interest, my instinct is to just hit fast forward.
You just want to get it over with.
Exactly. I want to get the words out as fast as humanly possible, finish my turn to speak, and retreat back into safety.
That is a very natural defense mechanism. When you are anxious, your internal clock speeds up. But the problem is what that rapid-fire pacing signals to the listener.
It doesn't look good, does it?
Rushing is a clear auditory broadcast of low status. When you speak too quickly, you are implicitly telling the room, I know my ideas are not valuable enough to warrant taking up your time, so I will get out of your way as quickly as I can.
Wow. You're verbally apologizing for taking up space.
Confident speakers, conversely, operate on their own timeline. They speak at a measured, deliberate pace, which signals that their thoughts are valuable and deserve to be heard in full. And an integral part of that deliberate pacing is how they utilize silence.
Embracing silence. This is the part of the research that I think is the most terrifying for beginners.
It is very counterintuitive.
In a social setting or during a presentation, silence feels like a catastrophic failure. It feels like the moment you stop making noise, everyone assumes you forgot your point or that you are incompetent.
That is the internal perception, driven by panic. The cognitive load of trying to find the next word while simultaneously worrying about what people think of you is immense. But the external perception of silence is radically different.
So it doesn't look like panic to the audience?
Not at all. To an audience, a deliberate pause does not look like panic. It looks like profound executive control. Confident people do not fear the void. Instead of panicking and rushing to fill every single microsecond with sound, they simply stop.
Just take a breath.
They breathe. They allow their previous point to land, and they take a moment to formulate their next thought. They leverage silence instead of falling back on vocal fillers.
Ah, the dreaded fillers. We are talking about the ums, the ahs, the likes, and the you-knows.
We all use them.
I catch myself doing this all the time. Whenever there's a gap between my brain and my mouth, I just insert a long to hold my place in line so nobody interrupts me.
And that is exactly why we do it. It is an acoustic placeholder, but from a behavioral standpoint, excessive use of fillers severely undermines your authority. When you use, you are telegraphing your cognitive struggle.
You're broadcasting that you're stuck.
You are broadcasting, I am currently searching for what to say next. However, if you simply replace that with pure silence, if you just close your mouth and pause for 2 seconds, the perception flips entirely.
You go from looking confused to looking like a genius.
Exactly. You no longer look lost. You look incredibly thoughtful. You appear to be an expert who is carefully curating the absolute best word to use. The research emphasizes that silence is not a mistake. It is a rhetorical tool. It builds anticipation and demonstrates that you are comfortable enough in your own authority to hold the floor without making a sound.
I need to write that down and tape it to my monitor. Silence is a tool, not a mistake. It takes so much pressure off having to perform constantly.
It really does.
So pacing and the strategic use of silence are massive factors.
Yeah.
But the research brings up another auditory clue that goes beyond just speed. It's about the actual music, the pitch, and the melody of your voice. We're talking about intonation.
Intonation matters just as much, if not more, than pacing. The studies highlight a very specific, pervasive vocal habit that drastically diminishes perceived confidence. In sociolinguistics, it is referred to as high-rising terminal, or more commonly, upspeak.
Upspeak. Okay, let me give an example of this because I definitely used to do this early in my career, especially on Zoom calls with senior management.
It's very common in the corporate world.
Upspeak is when you take a definitive statement, a normal declarative sentence, and you inflect your pitch upward at the very end, making it sound like a question.
Let's hear it.
So if someone asked me what project I was leading, instead of saying, I am managing the marketing rollout, I would say, I am managing the marketing rollout, with my voice going up at the end.
That is a perfect example. Upspeak has become incredibly common in modern speech patterns, but in a professional or high-stakes environment, it is deeply damaging to your perceived aura of authority.
Why is that? What's the subtext?
Think about the psychological subtext of what you are doing when you raise your pitch at the end of a statement. You are subconsciously seeking validation. You are essentially adding an invisible tag to your sentence that says, is that okay with you? Do you agree? Am I allowed to say this?
It's like you're apologizing for having an answer.
You are asking the listener for permission to exist and permission to hold your own opinion. You are taking a fact and turning it into a plea for approval.
It completely strips the power out of whatever you just said. You could be announcing the cure for a disease, and if you use upspeak, people will doubt if you actually know what you were talking about.
They absolutely will.
So what is the behavioral solution? How do we consciously override the habit of upspeak?
The research points to the exact opposite vocal pattern, falling intonation. To project authority, the pitch of your voice needs to drop at the end of a declarative sentence.
Falling intonation. So returning to my earlier example, instead of asking for permission with, I am managing the marketing rollout, I would actively drive my pitch down and say, I am managing the marketing rollout, period, full stop.
Precisely. By utilizing a downward pitch at the end of your sentences, you are signaling absolute certainty. You sound rooted, grounded, and convinced of your own words.
You sound so much stronger.
It transforms a timid request for consensus into an undeniable statement of fact. You are telling the listener, this is the reality of the situation, and I am not asking for your debate. And this specific vocal mechanic leads to one of the most encouraging takeaways from the entire body of research, particularly for individuals who are speaking a second language or navigating a highly technical field where they fear making a mistake.
Yes. The research clearly states that the delivery mechanism can override the content. It reminds us that even if your grammar isn't flawless, even if your vocabulary isn't perfectly polished, or your phrasing is slightly clumsy because you are still learning the ropes, the auditory cues of confidence will shape the listener's perception more than the actual words.
That is the beauty of it.
If you speak at a measured pace, utilize deliberate silent pauses instead of fillers, and finish your thoughts with falling intonation, the audience will perceive you as highly competent and deeply confident, regardless of minor technical errors.
That is incredibly freeing. It means you don't need a perfect vocabulary to command a room. You don't need to be the smartest person there. You just need to speak slowly, clearly, and with finality.
People will naturally tune into the certainty in your vocal delivery and overlook the small imperfections in your syntax.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for us? Let's take a step back and bring all of these distinct behavioral pieces together.
We have dissected a significant amount of psychological and physiological ground today.
We really have, and it completely demystifies the whole concept of an aura. To summarize our deep dive, true confidence isn't magic. It is not an exclusive genetic gift bestowed upon a lucky few at birth.
It's accessible to anyone.
It is simply a practical, repeatable mix of physical and auditory habits. It is understanding the biomechanics of good posture and intentionally taking up your rightful space in a room.
It is engaging others with sustained eye contact softened by a genuine warm smile.
It is demonstrating executive control by keeping your hands intentionally still.
It is managing your cognitive load by speaking deliberately, using silence as a tool, and driving your points home with falling intonation.
And most importantly, it is a dedicated daily practice of hitting the confidence gym, utilizing embodied cognition to hack your own nervous system, even when you feel terrified.
And as we synthesize all of this data, I want to highlight what I believe is the most profound and comforting psychological truth to emerge from this source material. It is a golden rule for navigating social anxiety and imposter syndrome. Never compare your messy inside to someone else's polished outside.
Wow. Never compare your inside to their outside. That hits hard.
We fall into this cognitive trap constantly. You stand at that networking mixer, and you are intimately aware of your own racing heart, your sweaty palms, and your internal monologue of doubt. You then look across the room at someone exhibiting perfect expansive posture, a calm smile, and a slow speaking cadence, and you assume their internal state matches their external display.
You assume they are fearless.
But you have to remember that human biology is universal. Everyone experiences fear, insecurity, and the urge to shrink. The individuals who look like they have it all figured out are very likely dealing with their own nervous little bird internal panic. The only difference is that they have spent more time practicing the external habits of confidence. They have just trained their muscles longer than you have.
That is such a grounded, empowering way to look at the world. It levels the playing field completely. So to everyone listening right now, we want to leave you with some strong encouragement.
Absolutely.
The next time you find yourself standing at the edge of a high-stakes, uncomfortable situation, whether you are about to speak up in a daunting strategy meeting, order food in a language you are just starting to learn, or simply walk through the doors of a crowded room full of strangers, we want you to remember the mechanics of this deep dive.
Take 2 minutes in the hallway to hold a power pose.
When you walk in, pull your shoulders down and back. Take a deep, deliberate breath. Claim your space and give it your absolute best shot. You aren't failing. You are simply getting your reps in at the confidence gym.
And the more you practice these neurophysical hacks, the stronger that muscle will get until the faking becomes reality.
This comprehensive look at behavioral science raises an important question, though. It is a final thought for you to carry with you and mull over as you go about your week.
What is that?
If this magnetic aura of confidence, the very thing that determines who gets listened to, who gets promoted, and who is perceived as a leader, is ultimately just a collection of mechanical, physical, and vocal habits designed to trick our own evolutionary biology. How much of our everyday reality and the ceiling of the opportunities we are given in life are shaped simply by how we choose to align our spine and regulate our breath?
That is a staggering thought to leave on. The idea that the trajectory of your career or your social life could hinge on something as simple as tilting your chin and dropping your pitch. It shows just how much power is actually in your own hands.
It really does. Thank you all so much for joining us on this deep dive into the mechanics of confidence. Keep working out that muscle. Keep claiming your space. Stay bold, stay positive, and keep practicing. We will see you on the next deep dive.